Hey guys and girls, back with you here, and this is going to be my review of the second episode of the new HBO miniseries, The Outsider, based of course on the recent Stephen King novel. And episode 2 is called Roanoke, one of the two. Both the first two episodes were released back to back, and I originally did a review of both of them on the same video, but for some reason the second half of the review didn't come out, it didn't record, so I'm redoing this, so apologies for the delay. And I think you pretty much got the gist of my feelings on the first episode. And this episode is where things really get going. So at the end of the first one, you were starting to get some conflicting evidence in the case involving Terry. You know, that fit his side. His lawyer appeared with a video which seemed to place him in a different place on the day of the murder, in a different location, and at roughly the same time as he was supposed to have been, you know, in the place where he murdered the kid. And there's other sort of conflicting evidence, and they were also waiting for the DNA, which they seemed to think was conclusive. So yeah, there was suddenly all this doubt sort of cast over the investigation, and it got to the point where either Ralph was starting to question what was happening. So this episode, again, it's full of atmosphere, full of mood, and it starts with this like bizarre little meeting at night. It's the night before the trial, and Ralph asks for permission to see Terry like in the middle of the night. So this is totally unofficial, and it's starting to get inside his head and his mindset, and the fact that he's starting to question what exactly the truth is. So they have this meeting, and in a way not a lot comes of it. He just re-asks him like the important questions. Did you see the boy on the day in question? Did you harm the boy? Did you kill him? And Terry says no to all of these questions. But then it gets really personal, because Terry brings up Ralph's kid, and as it turns out, he used to coach him at Little League before he went missing. And he readdresses this, because Ralph in the first episode asks about, did you ever harm my child, which Terry says no to. But bearing in mind at that point Ralph was convinced that Terry was guilty of this murder. So he has a very different mindset here, but it's Terry that brings it back up, and Ralph is like, you tread carefully now. And it's this bizarre little conversation where Terry he's almost bragging about how he gave the kid confidence, gave him extra confidence, because he was really struggling at Little League, at baseball. And so he sort of gives this sort of speech, and it's difficult really to know if it was kind of this thing where he was doing it to rub it in Ralph's face, or if he, in his own mind, it was, you know, just a nice little story to tell Ralph about his son. But it's kind of this bizarre sort of thing where it comes off a bit like he is trying to play mind games with Ralph. But that's as far as the meeting goes. Terry just reconfirms, no, I didn't do any of these things. And then in the next instance, in the next day, the episode takes a really bizarre, out of nowhere sort of twist, and full spoilers, obviously. It's then Terry is shot and killed when they're leading him into the court. And first of all, the opening of this scene is that he's in handcuffs, and there's like this massive crowd and massive media presence. You see like the district attorney being questioned about his angle and the whole political motivation. And but the way it's shot is very sort of deliberate. It kind of has this sense of like a baying sort of crowd. And although I think it's probably quite obvious then it's Terry who's being like abused and booed, at the same time there is this element of doubt because of his status in the town, and I think they are playing with this idea of maybe the police actually being the corrupt ones, or them handling things actually really bad and actually treating this family guy, this community figure, really bad. So there's that side scene, but then out of nowhere, it's the other son, like the older son of the family whose boy was killed. He comes out of nowhere. He's in street clothes and he's got a gun and he shoots Terry, he shoots another police officer, he shoots at Ralph. There's a whole like sort of gang of them, and it comes out of nowhere. Like, it's beautifully played in the scene, and it's just really explosive. It's like a punch to the gut, really. Just really grabs you. And it's crucial that Terry, as he's dying, as he's like gagging for breath, he because Ralph is right there, and Terry just reiterates, like, I didn't touch him, I didn't do it, I wasn't there. He says, I didn't do it, and I think that is probably important, because at that stage I think Terry knows that he is dying, so probably at that point he's got nothing to lose but to tell the truth. Not that it's 100% he is telling the truth, but I think there is that to it. At this point, yeah, why would he lie? And that's something his wife reiterates later on. And then we cut to a shot of the hooded figure who we've seen a couple of times since the start of the series. We see him in the background. His presence is there as he walks off, and he's casting this shadow over all these characters. So later on, another sort of dramatic event, which probably is less surprising, but the father of the family, the father of the victim's family, he then hangs himself in his house. And again, it's really well done, really gripping scene. But as we sort of cut away, we again see the hooded figure, and sort of leaving the scene. So his presence is very much there, and he even appears to be haunting Terry's family. So there's now a couple of different instances in the episode where Terry's like daughter freaks out. He's got two daughters, but one of them in particular freaks out. They think she's having nightmares, but she keeps saying a man was there, and she's clearly speaking about the hooded figure. And in one of these very like subtle little shots that they have here. See, I think Bankman actually, for an inexperienced director, does a really good job in these opening two episodes. There's just like this shot away from the bed, just at the side on the floor, where there's some sort of substance there, some either blood or water, some sort of liquid type substance. So something has been there, some sort of presence. Maybe not human, but it's just this subtle little like glance away, just this sort of little shot at this thing at the side of the bed. It's really nicely done, actually. But yeah, all this is kind of side stuff, but it's sort of suggesting, and there's a bit more going on. They get the DNA back from the lab, and that confirms that it's a match. Basically, then there was a match from the other crime scene, so that seems to at least convince the district attorney then they got the right guy. But clearly Ralph is having these doubts. And we also hear that then Terry's mother is now suing the state over the handling. So most of the rest of the episode is about Terry kind of without the knowledge of his superiors, because he's been put on suspension, he's been put on leave until the whole circumstances of the shooting and what have you has been investigated, and he's just been given this period of leave, and it's sort of been imposed on him that he has to have like therapy sessions, and a lot of times he doesn't bother to go, but then he's called in, and he later is kind of one of his like colleagues in as part of the case. They say, yeah, you can see this kid as long as you go to therapy. But a lot of the rest of the episode is Terry, or sorry, Ralph and the case, and just picking apart these little details, how he's now, I think, convinced himself that Terry was innocent and that there's something afoot here. So the case really gets cooking. He takes out of evidence like this sort of tag, some sort of like ripped thing off a poster or a flyer that just says Big Daddy's barbecue restaurant, and it's sort of set in Dayton, and Ralph finds out. See, I have to keep reminding myself which one's Ralph, which one's Terry, but he sort of finds out then the family, Terry's family, went to Dayton on a holiday, and I think it's just showing you that in every little thing he sees as a lead, he's very desperate to kind of crack this case and get to the bottom of things. So every little thing. So he starts following this up. He's told by his partner, the guy Al Seinfeld, that the kid who was picked up and sort of arrested, then he was driving around Dayton at some point, and he just left his van on the side of the road, his truck. So I think there's this small possibility that Terry, when he was in Dayton, might have picked up and used the van. It's the same van as was used to kill the kid, essentially picked the kid up. So there's a small window of doubt, and this is followed up later on by Ralph. Also, there's a book which apparently Terry was interested in at like this like expensive sort of store, which it's like this really pricey book which apparently no one ever touches, and Ralph goes to the extreme of like buying the book just to get like the fingerprints and looking for a match, and it turns out that there's a match there as well. So all these little things, but he agrees to go to therapy. And so that means his partner says, "Okay, I'll take you to see the kid who was arrested." Because at this point, I think Ralph is still on suspension or still on leave, whichever you want to phrase it. So he has to go for his partner. So it's all sort of makes sense and adds up. And so they go to see the kid, and he doesn't recognise the restaurant himself, like the restaurant on the flyer, but he does he says, you know, something was afoot when he went into a 7-Eleven and he saw a girl who was serving the people, that then she just had blood, and you know, she didn't wipe it off, and he just thought this was weird because she'd been serving people all day and it hadn't been wiped off. So that was one small little thing. But we now get to the kind of the crux of the episode, really, which is that I'm going to keep doing that, damn it. Then Ralph goes to visit the Terry's wife, and obviously she's very, very upset still, very anti the police and against what Ralph is doing, still coming to terms with her husband's death. But Ralph kind of pressures her, pursues her, and sort of puts it out there that we can help each other. He sort of plays it as, yeah, I don't think he did it. He doesn't say that in so many words, but he sort of hints at it, and that only you can help me get to the truth about your husband. In this case, I need you to find the right guy who did this. So there's an interview sort of thing in the house, and she insists that the lawyer, the Bill Camp character, who is again just brilliant in the scene, she insists then he is present during the interview. So again, he's doing his like pressing thing, and he's just questioning her about every little detail to do with the trip. Why did you go to Dayton? And she says because his father's there. His father's got like Alzheimer's. He's really in a bad way, so he was visiting them or him. And then Ralph's pursuing it, saying, well, was there any time when he was away from you and the girls? And she's kind of shutting him down, saying, well, only a few times during the day, that there's nothing here really. And she's kind of just shutting everything down because he brings up the restaurant, and I forget the wife's name, but she's like, just, no, I haven't heard of that restaurant. But then things take a turn when one of the girls comes down, and it's the one who I think has been having all the dreams, and, well, supposed dreams, and she's been seeing the hooded guy. And she just says, well, Daddy did have a cut. And so he, obviously, Ralph pursues this with her against the mother's like sort of protest, and she says he had a cut which he claimed was because he bumped into a nurse at the hospital. Now it could always be a male nurse, that's sort of raised, but just says, yeah, he bumped into a nurse, clashed in and landed on him or her, and that's how he got the cut. So little bit of suspicion. It's not a massive amount to go on, but again, I think it's sort of showing then Ralph is, yeah, any little thing he can kind of hook on and cling to, he's gonna pursue it. And the girl also mentions that they did, when they were shopping at the mall, they did stop off at this like barbecue chicken type place. So that potentially could be the Big Daddy's BBQ restaurant. So there's these small things coming together which are little possibilities. So it does kind of hook you into the case. It's a really slow burning thing, but really intriguing. I think the pacing has been really good, and there's some really good tension. And finally, she kind of ushers them, like her daughter, to bed and says, "That'll be all, and now good night." So Ralph is slowly like kind of like getting little nuggets, little bits of information out of the family. So he's hoping then it could start to connect. And there's these little things going on, like we end in like this barn sort of thing on this farm, and just this character who's just found, seems to be like some sort of dead animal, like all bloody again, and that's kind of the last shot of the episode. But it's all again very random, and there's some bizarreness going on in the background of this. But it's a really gripping, intriguing episode. Again, it's been a really good start to this series. I think in this episode, the way they just turn things around on you, and suddenly they've refocused the kind of perspective the show's going from, and a lot of really rich character stuff going on. And I think just the way the whole thing was handled with Terry being shot, and just the fallout of that, it really shows you how it's affecting the family. So I think it's been pretty great so far. I think there's a lot of potential here for many more intriguing moments and character little beats. So I'm really liking it so far. I think this is going to be a strong series if it can keep going at this sort of pace. Only the odd sort of moment that feels a bit forced or a little bit melodramatic, but overall I think it's got a consistent tone. It's very gritty, has a good style. You've got intriguing characters, and it doesn't really feel like your typical procedural. It does feel quite different, so something to be said for that. So that is my review of episode 2 of The Outsider, the HBO miniseries. Thanks for watching this video, and I will be back with a review of episode 3 next week. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.